Hey, it's Romania Black, and we're on the 3 episode warning of Blue Lock. I'm gonna be honest. I have held off from watching this episode because I'm trying to savor and hold on to as much as I can with this series. And I've had a lot of people ask if I'm going to read the manga. Look, on Patreon, I'm just now starting to get into the manga for Jujutsu Kaisen. I have so many extras. I have lists of extras that I'm getting through per month. I definitely would like to eventually get to the manga, but it's not going to be anytime soon. So, and plus knowing that they're working on season 2 and that there's a movie coming out, it's like, I don't know when I will get to stuff beyond this season of Blue Lock. I would like to eventually, but I'm not going to tell you when because there's so much on my plate with this channel right now that I just can't dedicate an immediate amount of time to it. So the good news is that the Discord channel for Blue Lock has been super active. People are talking about the manga chapters that come out, in spoiler tags, of course, but they're sharing official artwork that's coming out, like merchandise, stuff like that. And the merchandise and official artwork for Blue Lock is so creative that I feel like it generates a lot of discussion just on its own. So I have no doubt that Blue Lock is going to continue to be talked about beyond this. It's just gonna suck when we don't have a weekly episode to look forward to, right? And I move this from the current channel to the ongoing channels that are never ending. So I do have some comments I want to talk about before we dive into this, specifically from Wim, as well as Dot7568. I do want to talk about Dot's comment first. Dot7568, they talked about how looking at Nagi and how they were viewed by Reo, which for the record, I still ship Nagi and Reo. Absolutely, but I do think Reo needs to go and do some soul searching, especially after these last couple episodes. But I like how Nagi is viewed by Reo, according to Dot, like has been quoted in the episodes as being viewed as a treasure, which is kind of possessive a little bit. But also noting that Reo never really made Nagi practice. He just kind of let Nagi do whatever he wants. And you could question whether Reo, was he holding Nagi back? Was he keeping him close so that he wouldn't outgrow Reo? And maybe Reo was insecure, thinking if Nagi kept advancing, Reo wouldn't be able to keep up and he would leave him, which is kind of what ends up happening here. I don't know, right? But I do think that Reo doesn't necessarily, he's not possessive to where he wants to hold Nagi back from becoming better, but he's worried about Nagi leaving him behind and wants them to succeed together in becoming Japan's best strikers. And Nagi's like, your method is just wrong. And so, yeah, Reo needs to do some soul searching, for sure. But I thought that was a really good point to make, Dot, so I'm glad that you commented that. And then Wim had a lot of comments, which is great. Wim is the moderator for the Blue Lock channel, so of course I'm very happy and grateful for all that Wim does in checking everything to make sure that I'm not spoiled. But the Blue Lock mangaka, apparently Kaneshiro, is currently simultaneously writing 2 manga at once, which sounds insane to me and time consuming and like it would wear you out. So kudos to them. But one manga is Blue Lock and the other one is called Super Bad Girls and is an ecchi harem manga. And I'm like, that explains a lot. What? These shippable elements in Blue Lock related to a mangaka that's doing a simultaneous harem manga? What? Who knew? And apparently it's being illustrated by the mangaka of the series Prison School, which I've been recommended before, so I kind of know a little bit about that. But apparently the mangaka started Blue Lock, doing Blue Lock in October of 2022 and doing this simultaneously. So this series is not very old. That's like, so I get that they're probably waiting on more content to make sure they have a full season's worth of episodes before they animate. So I'm like, that's not a very long old manga. That's crazy. I'm like, how do they sleep? Doing 2 manga simultaneously. Then Wim also talked about Bachira versus Isagi now. And then we have, I like this idea of Reo wanting to work together with Nagi to get to the top, and Nagi wanting to rise to the top together. I like that. I like that it's kind of like my notes, basically what I was getting at from Wim's comment was you had Bachira, both Bachira and Reo kind of had in mind that they would be working their way towards the top, but they would be doing so maybe alongside Isagi and maybe alongside Nagi. Whereas Nagi's like, no, we need to both get strong enough to where we both can be to the top. and we'll both just be at the top together, right? And I don't think that's what Reo was thinking, maybe. But then, you know, Bachira and Isagi, is Bachira realizing, you know, that he and Isagi could rise to the top together, but they both simultaneously have to be strong enough to do so? Maybe. We'll just have to see. And then is Isagi taking Chigiri? I thought about also Isagi taking Chigiri, and Wim pointed this out, is basically like Rin taking Bachira. You know, and we saw Isagi rose to the challenge to come after Bachira. So is Kunigami going to rise to the challenge to come after Chigiri? Possibly. And I like the idea too, is that Isagi waiting on Rin and Bachira outside their little practice space before they started the match is very similar to Nico waiting on Bachira and Isagi. Although I will say, here's the thing. The atmosphere between Rin and Bachira was very different from Bachira and Isagi. Like, when Nico was waiting outside, like in that room waiting for Isagi and Bachira to turn around, they were practically making out. There was so much flirting and like, oh, we're gonna do these things together, and then they turn around and, oh, Nico's there. Whereas, you know, the Bachira and Isagi shipper in me would just point out that there was that. And then whereas Bachira was like, Rin, be my friend. And Rin's like, never. And then they turn around and Bachira was like, oh my God, my boo is back. And so it's a totally different vibe, right? Totally different vibe. So there's that. But I'm really excited to start episode 22. We're in the midst of this match. I'm a bit worried, if I'm being honest, because we only have 3 episodes left. And it's down to the wire. It's 4-3. And I'm pretty sure that it might be... Is it Isagi's team ball? If it's not Isagi's team ball, then we're screwed. But Bachira may be having this awakening, this evolution. It's at the worst time as far as their game goes. And I'm absolutely terrified of how this is going to go. So, but before we step into this madness, we need to acknowledge, of course, my favorite sports anime. So if you're not sure what that is at this point in these reactions, have a look.
In some sports anime, certain characters of the primary colors have to figure out that they can't just rely upon the very cool and shippable character that they're stuck with, but instead have to rely upon themselves. You know another series where the main character knows they have to rely upon themselves to get better in order to succeed? Why, Salmura Ajun from Ace of the Diamond. Yes, in Ace of the Diamond, Salmura realizes that he has to become the best version of himself in order to become ace of his team and lead them to victory. So when you're done watching Blue Lock and want another main character that has to overcome the odds and listen to their own inner voice to become better, then go watch Ace of the Diamond. Now, back to the reaction.
It's really weird because we only have like 2 more of those left. But what can we do? I was going to wear a baseball jersey today, but it is really hot in here. We had like a warm front come through, so just a t-shirt it is. But we're not going to wait any longer, y'all. I'm super excited, and we're going to see how this episode goes. So we're going to start Blue Lock, episode 22. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's make sure my stuff's on. Yep. And let's go. Why? Why does it always end on a damn cliffhanger? Oh my gosh. So yeah. Oh my God. Well, it's 4-4. And I don't know. I don't know at this point. I don't know. I think it could. I know my dogs are all crazy because I've been ignoring them the last 23 minutes. But I'm kind of torn. I think it could go either way. But here's the deal. This is what makes me think that they're going to lose. And by them, I mean Isagi and them. This is why I think they're going to lose. Only because, like, towards the end, because this whole episode was basically Bachira. I like Bachira. Bachira just did exactly what Reo needs to do in the span of 23 minutes. Bachira, I'm glad that we touched on the idea that Bachira was kind of starting to fall into the same pattern that Reo was, and kind of doing this not for the same reason that Rayo did, but it had become this kind of dependency, this codependency that was starting to drag Bachira down. And I was like, oh no. And I'm glad that Bachira got over it. We'll talk about that. I'm glad he's over it and that he's going to be working towards himself. It's kind of bittersweet, honestly. But here's the thing. Right as he's getting over Isagi and depending on him, and right as I'm going to put Bachira up here, okay? We're going to put Bachira up here, and then we're going to have Nagi over here, and then we're going to have Rayo over here, and then we're going to have Isagi over here, okay? Now, Chigiri and Kunigami have their own thing going on. We'll resolve that, I'm sure, next season. Baro's whole thing is he doesn't need no man or anybody, to be honest. He just needs to be the best version of himself, and that's what he's working on. So we're fine there. Aryu and Toki, I see why y'all ship them together now. Whenever Baro called Toki glam guns, I was like, is Baro shipping them together? I feel like he is. I was like, I would never consider Toki glam guns, but okay. I guess glam's guns, maybe. And then Reen. Reen's whole thing is Reen is kind of like, he needs no one. He needs no one, but he's also kind of better than Baro. So that's kind of the deal. He's better than Baro and he doesn't need anybody. So Reen is like, I don't need a ship with any of you all. That's kind of Reen's whole take, right? And the cast of Blue Lock would like him to think otherwise. So I think that Bachira's whole thing was that he had believed that he was doing soccer. He had formed soccer originally because it was fun and he could do it by himself, and he just enjoyed it and didn't need anybody else to be good at it or to have fun and enjoy it. And then as he kept playing, and here's the thing about it is that usually in sports, they push teamwork and camaraderie so much that it does almost seem like there's kind of like, you can't do it without someone. You need a player to play with you in order for it to be a thing. And so Bachira had kind of got into that mindset of, well, I need someone to play against me, but none of these people are good enough. And so then he kept starting to look for, somebody to play with. And that's where the monster came from, the imaginary friend, because he felt lonely and wanted someone to play with him because he was seeing other people kind of doing the same thing on the field. And then it kind of evolved from there and it became, I don't just need someone to play with. I need someone good that can match me. And then he starts to meet characters like Isagi and the others who are doing what he wanted that monster to become. But it was starting to become kind of like a dependency that he wasn't doing it for himself anymore. He was doing it so he could play with someone. And Reen kind of chides him about it back there, being like, well, why are you doing this if you're doing this to play with someone else? That's not going to get you past Blue Lock. That's not what this is about. Like, you joined this to be the best striker. Well, how can you be the best striker if you're just looking for someone to play with? That's not being the best. So, Reen's kind of blunt about it, and he's kind of a jerk, but he's not wrong. And so I like that Isagi, kind of became someone he wanted to play with in this case. But Isagi at this point, Isagi wants to be the top striker. And in order to be the top striker, he wants people at their best. Right? Now, here's the difference between Isagi and Reen. I believe Isagi wants people at their best, and he believes characters like Nagi and Kunigami and Chigiri and Baro and Bachira, they are all capable of being the best versions of themselves, and he wants to elevate them to that point to where they all can devour one another in this giant orgy, basically, and then just become the best possible, right? Reen is not about elevation. Reen does not give a shit if you become the best version of yourself. Reen don't care about that. Reen just wants the best. And if you can't be the best, then get the fudge out of his way. Isagi wants to kind of almost like cultivate you and nurture you to be he's like basically, here's the difference. Isagi is going to go the distance to cultivate that chunk of meat until it is marinated and ready to be put on the barbecue and devoured. Reen expects you to come pre-made and packaged and ready to go. And if you aren't, he ain't wasting his time. So if you are not the 5-star restaurant quality put on a plate in front of Reen, he don't have use for you. But Isagi, he's a damn chef. He'll sit there and marinate and make that barbecue work. You just gotta give him some time. So it's not the best metaphor, but that, to me, that's a difference between Reen and Isagi at this point, right? Maybe Reen already has the skills to be the master chef and he's just waiting for people to do it for him. I don't know. But in any case, Isagi, and I kind of like that throughout this match, Isagi was not like paying close attention to Bachira. He was too focused on the game and winning. Nagi was the one who really noticed Bachira in this episode, and he was like, what's up with you? Probably because Bachira's acting like Rayo, and Nagi's like, this seems vaguely familiar, right? But in any case, Isagi wants people at their best, and at the very end, he sees that Bachira steps up his game, right? Bachira steps up his game and realizes that, oh, Bachira is this chaotic element that Reen can't predict. So he's this chaotic element that he wants because Reen can't predict it. And he's like, that's what we need to beat Reen. The funny part is that Isagi is gathering all these pieces to beat Reen and isn't focusing on Reen at this point. So I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so Nagi thinks that Isagi would choose Reen. That's what Nagi thinks. And that kind of gets Bachira for a second being like, oh shit, am I going to get overtaken and overlooked and be left behind? I don't want that. But here's the thing. The moment that Isagi said, oh, Bachira is the missing piece I need, he's the one I want, I was like, ooh, does that mean they're going to lose? Because I was like, the moment you start counting your chickens before you hatch in this show, it starts to go downhill. And I'm like, I don't know. Because I just can't picture at this point. I think what I would like to happen at this point is I think they're going to lose. I think Isagi and them are going to lose. But I want Reen and Bachira to pick Isagi because he shows the most promise and potential. Bachira kept saying this entire episode that he couldn't choose between Reen and Isagi. Bachira's like, I can't pick between them. He's like, Isagi's like my soulmate, but also I want to play with Reen because Reen is really, really talented. Kind of like why Isagi wants to play with Reen. And I'm like, well, why don't the three of you just have a threesome? Why don't we just do that? Why don't the three of you just get together in a threesome and then our problems are solved? So the greedy person in me wants Reen to have Bachira and Aryu, Toki, Team Bat, and then Isagi joining them. And that would leave Baro and Chigiri and Nagi behind. But then you would have the whole drama of Chigiri possibly replaying against Kunigami and Rayo and Nagi replaying one another. And then Baro's just thrown in there and it's like, whatever. But here's the thing. I don't know if that's going to happen. Like, even if Isagi's team loses, would Reen and Bachira pick Isagi? Because Bachira said goodbye to him at the end of this episode, like he was leaving him behind. Now, is he fully leaving him behind, or is he just saying, like, I'm not going to be playing to play with you anymore. I'm going to be my own striker and not have to depend on you. Would they pick Isagi, or would they pick Nagi and go? Would they pick Chigiri and go? Or Baro? This show makes you question whatever it's going to do. And I'm like, I don't know. I got shit. I don't know. I don't know. So what are we going to do? Let's go through this episode. Oh my God. I don't know what to think. So yeah, we got the little recap with them and everything, and Toki, and I like that Isagi is like, I should have taken advantage of Toki and figured out his moves, and then I like that Isagi is basically going back through the game in real time and realizing it's like his hindsight 2020 is happening like immediately after. There's not like 2020, it's like hindsight now, and he's just figuring out what he did wrong in the moment, which is great. But I feel like, I like the realism of this game and where I think it's going, where it's a little too late. It's like, I'm glad you're realizing these things, Isagi, but you should have realized them a long time ago, not during the game that you need to win. So, and it's tied 4-4. I'm like, ugh. Which, granted, we're going to talk about that moment. Oh my God, where he tied it up. But I feel for Bachira. Now, look, I'm going to be honest. Those of you that ship Bachira and Reen, I see you. I see you. You guys have been trying to gaslight me into shipping them this entire series. I see that. I just don't. I do not romantically ship Reen and Bachira together. I just don't see it. I see the ship, especially because Bachira's like underwater throughout most of this. And when he says goodbye to Isagi, he doesn't say goodbye to Reen and he's underwater. So I'm like, is Bachira going over to Team Rin? I see it, but I don't like it. I like the idea. And this episode was kind of like a sinker of ships in a way, because it was like, but I try to view it from a different angle, because the shipper in me is sad when Bachira's like, goodbye, Isagi. I'm not going to depend on you anymore. I'm not chasing after you. I'm going to be my own person. But I kind of find that empowering. And I love that for Bachira, because Bachira should not have to depend on anyone. He shouldn't have to depend on a relationship with someone that's not going to make him the best striker. If you become too obsessed with someone, you're going to eventually fall and you're not helping yourself. So I'm glad that Bachira like stood up and was like, I'm going to be the top striker and I'm going to be better than you, Isagi. And it's going to be their back and forth, right? They're going to be back and forth this entire series trying to outdo each other. And that's going to be honestly hotter than a ship where it's like, it's more attractive to be ambitious and be the strongest version of yourself than to be a stage 5 clinger. And Bachira was starting to show like those clingy tendencies where he's like, don't leave me behind, don't do this. And Nagi called him out. Nagi's like, are you waiting to be chosen? Or are you going to stand up and choose? And I was like, and for him to say that to Bachira, but not Reo, I was like, Nagi, Isagi said that to Reo, but what are you doing? It's like Isagi and Nagi are saying it to their friends' partners. It's like, what is happening? But it's like the choose, not chosen. But, here's the deal, and then that kind of is like what both Bachira and Bachira figures it out by the end of this episode. And he becomes like Nagi, where he's like, no, I'm going to be the best striker. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I don't know. Since Bachira said goodbye to chasing after Isagi being his true monster, is he going to want to choose Isagi if they win? Or is he going to pick somebody else and make Isagi come after him? I don't know. And what is Reen going to do? Is Reen going to recognize like Isagi kind of almost besting him in this moment? Or is he going to be like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. So I don't know. But yeah, I like that Baro is also thinking of things he could have changed in the moment and been like, oh shit, we could have done this. And Isagi's like breaking down like the plays and everything. And he's like, Rin went with free kick because it was against me. I like that immediately, like we see half of Isagi's face like taken out because of the puzzle pieces. It looks like body horror. It looks terrifying seeing like half his face gone. And he's like, if I can find a way to use myself effectively, then is this the formula I need to beat Reen? He's like, I need to think, what is Reen expecting me to do? And how do I counter that? I like that. I think that's really good. I also like Chigiri in this episode. Chigiri and Baro. I like Baro, just everybody calls him Missy. And they're both just trying to work through it. Again, Nagi's like, Nagi is just here to be a team player. And honestly, I don't know if they're going to choose Nagi based on that, right? Because Nagi being a team player, I don't know if that's what Reen needs. I don't know if that's what he wants. I don't know if Nagi has stood out enough for them to pick him. I feel like with Baro and Chigiri, they wouldn't choose either of them because they already have Ryu and Toki. They don't need another version of that. So they're not going to pick Chigiri or Toki. It's like, are they going to pick Nagi or are they going to pick Isagi? I kind of want them to pick Isagi if they win, but if they pick Nagi, I'm going to be like, are you freaking kidding me? But I don't know. I do like that Isagi is not, Isagi is like focused only on the game. Off the court, once they're out of the field and off the court, Asagi's like, hey, best friends, how's it going? Want to have a slumber party and make out? But on the court, he's like, I'm going to destroy you. It's like, okay. And then, yeah, I like that Isagi uses Baro as a decoy, moves past him. I didn't like Baro calling him a donkey, but whatever. And then they were so handsy in this episode. Like, everybody was grabbing everyone. I'm like, is that even legal? Can they do that? But they were getting handsy. And like, I was like, in soccer, is that allowed? I guess Ego doesn't care. He's like, these kids, I like that Ego's like, they're not bleeding. They're not dead. We're fine. And Henri's like, I hope we don't get a lawsuit. And then, Toki with his weird, Toki having like the mixed aura of like, here's the thing. There's a shot here and Toki has like everybody gets on to Isagi having like a fart green aura. No. Toki has the fart green, like too much broccoli aura to him. It's like broccoli green. It looks sickly. And then he has this like neon lime, like aquamarine and red colors from RU and like, and it's almost like, no, his aura looks like Reen and Sai's auras mixed together with his fart green presence. It's disgusting. Toki's such a weird character. I don't know about his aesthetic. And I just like that Asagi's like, I ain't got time to deal with either of you two. But then Bachira. And it almost seemed like Isagi was like looking at Bachira like, something's off with you, as Bachira's saying, wait for me, Isagi. But here's the thing. These characters aren't going to wait for you. Like, none of them are. As much as we ship them all together, as much as we do ships, they're just like, just ships with cannons barreling towards one another at maximum speed. There's nothing gentle about the shipping in this series, as if devouring each other wasn't, a sign enough that nothing about these ships are gentle. No, it's just not how they go. They're going to all go hard 100% for themselves. And if they just happen to bump uglies along the way, then that's what we got to do. What else can we do, right? I mean, the softest pairing right now is Chigiri and Kunigami, but that's literally it. Everything else is just like, we're going to slit each other's throats and lick the blood up as we go. I'm just like, all right. But yeah, and Reen just being a mermaid over here, just constantly being a waterbender. And he's like, don't leave me behind. Yeah. And then I like that Isagi this whole time is like, okay, what do I do? There's a wide open space. I'm going to take it towards Chigiri. They can outrun him. We're going to clear a path. And he's like, but I need to disappear from Rin's vision for a second. So I'm going to run diagonal, be distracting. I'm going to pass it now. This is the future of the field that I draw. Here's my chance. And then, of course, there comes Rin. I'm like, you can't say things like this, Isagi, without Rin coming up. That's a really great shot, though. I'm going to take a shot of that real quick of Rin just coming up on Isagi like that. Oh my God. And then he's like, what do I do? And he's like, are you serious, Rin? And he's like, I was through, and he caught up even barely. He's gonna block my shot. And okay, he wants Rin to think that he's gonna block his shot. He's like, you've got me. Oh no, Rin, I'm gonna be overtaken by you. This isn't good. I'm not good enough to beat this guy. And then he says, not. The way he said not was like the most arousing thing I've heard all week. I was like, what? Somebody has probably replayed that scene an obscene amount of times. And if not, it's about to be me when I'm done with this discussion. Because I was like, I just gagged, breath gone, done. I think that is the move that would get Rin to choose him. That would be the move that would get Rin to choose Isagi, being like, oh. Because here's the thing. We've joked about Rin being a bottom, and half the Discord disagrees with me and believes he's a top. I think Isagi would do whatever you wanted him to in the bedroom, honestly. He's a genius of adaptability, right? And Rin is a genius of versatility. So there you go. If he's a genius. I'm still, the verdict's out on that. But Rin's face when he stops with the foot, that was the face of, this man could conquer me in the bedroom, and I'm suddenly okay with this. That was the face. Rin making the face of, oh. It was either the, you could take advantage of me, and I'm kind of all about that, or you could handle what I would put down or on you, and I'm now okay with that. It's one or the other, and my mind's in the gutter. You'll have to excuse me, but that move where he's like the blind spot so that you would read me and I could lure you in and catch me up to your genius, and then doing that back kick. He's like, this is my last action. And the back heel shot. Oh my God. Oh my God. And Reen being like, the fudge. That look that Reen gives is the look of a man who's possibly considering his defeat. Like, Reen's face in this episode is like, shit, we could lose. And I don't think Reen's ever felt that way before. So the fact that someone like that can make him feel that way, I don't know if it would encourage Reen to choose him should they lose, or if he'd be like, I don't want this guy near me because he could possibly beat me. But if Reen's as good as he says he is, then I feel like he'd want Isagi, because he would want to figure out, he'd want that on his side rather than against him, right? He would want that going forward rather than have to deal with that pain later. I mean, because yeah, you know, if bring your friends close and your enemies closer, if Reen thinks that Isagi could possibly be a threat, then you'd want to get that on your side, because what happens after this game if Isagi suddenly like reevaluates and starts re-strategizing? He's going to be stronger than ever. So yeah, you don't want that against you again. Get that on your side now, and then you want to deal with it later. But I don't know. I love how happy Chigiri is when they score. He's like, yeah. And Baro's like, son of a bitch. And Nagi's like, you are a savior. I don't know. I feel like it would be maximum angst for, if they lose, Isagi to get picked, and for Reo and Nagi and Kunigami and Chigiri to have to face up again. And then we'd have to deal with that fallout. And who would you pick from that group? I mean, that would be the ultimate angst and drama, and this mangaka seems to like ultimate angst and drama, so I don't know. I mean, they could still win, don't get me wrong. Isagi and his crew could still win, but I don't know. I feel like having all this Bachira backstory and have Reen getting, you know, like a little flustered and feeling kind of like, oh shit, Isagi could beat me in this mode. I don't know. I feel like my thing is, if they lose, here's the thing. If you have 4 characters in Isagi's team, that if Isagi's team wins and take, you know, Reen or Bachira, whichever one with them, I think it'd be a big toss up now, because now Isagi kind of wants Bachira again. That then the 3 that are left over, if it's Reen and Toki and Aryu, well, hell, they're just going to win 2 more matches and advance anyway because they're the strongest. So I don't think that's going to create as much narrative drama as Isagi's team losing. But can you imagine if Isagi's team loses? I mean, how often has that happened in a sports anime where the main character's team keeps losing? I haven't watched a sports team where that happens this much, but right? Usually they pull something out of their ass, but at the last minute, I don't know if that's going to happen with this, right? I don't know. And here's the thing moving forward. Even though Bachira doesn't need to depend on Isagi anymore moving forward, that doesn't necessarily mean the ship is dead. If they pick Isagi and Isagi's on the team with Bachira and Reen, it could just be like Nagi. Like Nagi and Isagi have kind of the dynamic where they're both like, I don't need to depend on you. I can be my own great player, but let's keep moving forward together. And that's kind of why Reo, you know, was mad at Isagi, and why Nagi's like, you need to be more like Isagi and not just depend on me. If Bachira's like that with Isagi, then they could totally move forward and have a great dynamic. They could totally be fine. We could have an OT3 with Bachira, Reen, and Isagi. I kind of would like that, but I don't know. And he's like, I devoured you, Reen. I don't know if I agree that Isagi devoured Reen, but he took a little taste. He took a little taste test. He took a little chunk of skin and went, nah. Had some fava beans with it and a nice glass of Chianti. That's where he was at now. But I don't think he's devoured Reen entirely. And Reen's like, son of a bitch, what? I didn't give you permission. Reen's like, consent, bitch. I didn't give you that. He's like, I will surpass you. I mean, I am all about inner team rivalries. Inner team rivalries where the rivals try to surpass each other within the team. Ace of the Diamond has the best one, I think, of any series I've seen. Furuya and Sawamura have like the best relationship and dynamic of rivals constantly battling for the same position. So if you told me that Reen and Isagi were going to be on the same team and we're going to have to fight it out for like the position of striker. I think that could be a great dynamic. I think it could rival that. I think it has that potential, but we'll just have to see. And then Bachira would be like Miyuki, so we'll just have to see if that ends up happening. But I don't know, and they're all kind of like celebrating that score. I'm assuming, is it Chigiri's arm who's draped over Isagi's? I like that arm just draped over him the entire time that he's talking. And then Isagi has this moment where he's like, yes, yeah, we did in fact do this, but let me break down the play-by-play with you. This moment. I was like, what the fudge? Isagi, my dude. I just love he's just having this play-by-play during all of this. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now? It's great. And he just explains everything that us, the audience, have just seen so that they know. I believed in his ability to envision the scene that I foreseen. It's just basically like they're just there playing 4D chess. They're there playing 4D chess and making assumptions. And I'm glad that Baro notes, he's like, so what you did was a gamble. If you had missed, they could have counterattacked and we would have lost. And Isagi's like, yeah, but they didn't. So that's kind of the thing. I like the concept that the foresight and spatial awareness that Rin and Isagi have they're not infallible. They are gambles. They could not work, but if they're smart enough, they'll make it work. So I like that Baro kind of points out the fatal flaw that is inherent within that ability, but Shigiri's like, oh, screw it. Let's just keep beating Rin. We're going to crush him in this last play to prove that we're the better team. And I do like the shot of Nagi, like, giving Isagi the head pats. I'm like, all right. And Shigiri's like, yeah. And Baro's like, all right. I like that. I like Nagi and Isagi's dynamic. And also you can see that Nagi is taller than Isagi in that panel. That's great. And then if we don't trounce them, it's all meaningless. And I like that Rin's like, okay, all right. I see you over there. I see you. You're on my radar now. Rin looking still calm, cool, and collected is just so worth noting. And then poor Baro, or Bachira, not poor Baro. Bachira's like, what bit of ego am I missing to catch up to Isagi and Rin? And it's that he's depending on others rather than believing in his own voice. This episode being called Voice. It's like Bachira, all of them on the field are believing in themselves, not worrying about relying on other teammates, not worrying about the shipping, but just being themselves and being the best striker they can be. And Bachira wasn't doing that. He was kind of following into the patterns that Rayo had and was starting to like rely too much on other people. And I'm glad he breaks out of that because Bachira deserves to be at the top with the others. I do think it's interesting that Bachira wants to be with both Rin and Isagi. I mean, get more the merrier, so not going to argue with that. But I think it's interesting that he wants to be with both of them because, well, Rin's the strongest and Bachira is like his soulmate, so what am I supposed to do? And so then, yeah, I like that Toki calls the back heel glam. And then we have, like, I love Aryu's, like, laugh, cry, or be glam. It says basically his live, laugh, love. I want a little cross stitch of laugh, cry, or be glam to hang up now. I want that. That would be amazing. Whoever scores next wins. And then I like Rena's like, all of you, do everything you can like your life depends on it. Put everything into this next move. And then he says, I'll draw you a goal with your efforts. I love that. I love that Rin says that your efforts, give them to me and I'll give you the goal. And that's kind of what Isagi is trying to do, but he's just not quite to Rin's level yet, right? But he's close. He's getting closer. So yeah, they go through all these plays, Rin and Isagi going up one-on-one, and then I like Nagi and Aryu up against one another. I love that he calls Aryu a stick insect, like the little walking sticks. That's such a not a glam comparison. If Aryu knew he said that, he would be like absolutely ashamed and would be like, how dare you, sir? I also will talk about the additional time here in a little bit. But then he passes to Bachira. And Bachira, being torn, what do I do? And the thing about it is, before with the monster, it was like, oh, the monster's helping him. But now it's like, no, the monster's holding him back. And he's relying on the monster to give him answers rather than him using his own voice to advocate for himself and his own answers. And it's like, oh my God, it's great. It's great. I love that Bachira is able to overcome the monster in this. And he's like, what can I do? I'm going to get left behind. And that's when Nagi's like, look, we want Reen. he's like, you think that we came here and that us winning, we're going to pick you, but you're waiting to be chosen. That's not going to happen. And I'm glad that Nagi says it to him, because I think in this episode, I was like, oh, Bachira kind of thought that Isagi was coming to get him and was going to pick him. But that's not what it is. I was like, oh, Bachira. And I'm glad that Isagi tells him now. He's like, hey, we all kind of want Reen on our team, not you. And Bachira's like, shit, I'm going to get left behind. And I'm not going to be able to catch back up. Because that was the thing. Bachira got chosen from the beginning. And now, when he realizes that that's probably not going to happen again, it's like, oh, no. So I thought that was really, really good that Nagi told him that. And then he's like, what do I do? And I love the idea of so he has like the blue light, but then it turns yellow at the end. So I don't know if Bachira's, like, if his aura is blue, like Blue Lock, or if it's yellow, right? Maybe at the end we'll see that again. But I'm calling him Glam Guns. And then he's like, we've been stealing balls from each other from the very beginning. And then we get the back, like the little flashback with Bachira. I love his mom telling him, being like, we pretend that we can't hear the voice inside. And eventually we can't hear what it's saying. And I like the idea that the voice inside isn't someone else that we need to depend on. It's us. The voice is ourselves. It's our ambition. It's fleeting, but it's important. It's like what we believe in ourselves. Our soul is that voice. And Bachira had just been pretending the voice was coming from something else rather than inside. And realizing, I love that realization that he's like, I don't need anybody else. I can create my own happiness. I can be my own person. Because yeah, there are some people I know in life that are dependent upon others. I know some of my friends that they can't go 5 months without a boyfriend or a girlfriend. That's just, they need somebody in their life to be dependent upon. Some people, they love helping people to the point that if they have no one to help, they lose purpose in life. But then there's some people that they're like, I don't need anybody else. I can create my own happiness, and that's enough. And I feel like this show kind of gives you the perspective of you don't need other people to generate your self-worth. You generate your own self-worth, and then you surround yourself with others that value that and respect it and are generating their own self-worth as well. And that's kind of like what Blue Lock is. And I love that. What have I believed in? And she's like, the answer is yourself, your inner voice. And I feel like maybe the water is the blue aura. He's like, his true inner voice is this like water depth, and that's like, he has the dolphin on his shirt, so we've been calling him a bumblebee the whole time, but maybe he's like a mixture of a bumblebee and a mixture of a dolphin. So maybe he can be in a threesome with both Reen and Isagi, because he can be with the flower and also the merman. So it seems that way. Like the blue aura seems tied to the water, which also ties to Reen. But then there's the yellow of it that also ties to Isagi. So, and you know, if you put blue and yellow together, it kind of makes green, which is tied to Isagi and Reen. So I'm saying OT3. I'm on team OT3. I can handle that. Reen would probably just stand there. He doesn't care. But he realizes that he can't catch up to Isagi, and he's like, I need to remember it once more, and I need to trust it once more, that it's myself. And I love the way they animate Bachira in this moment. And then Asagi's like, you're the best. You're the absolute best. When he gets the ball away, yes. Because Nagi's like, you're the striker, and gives it over to him. He tries to go for that shot, but damn. And the thing about it is, I didn't even notice, but when he was aiming up that shot, you don't see Reen in the periphery. He was not expecting Reen to come through. And I thought it was over. I thought this game was over. I was like, shit, they're going to actually score, and that's the end of it. But no, Reen's like, son of a bitch, no, you don't. I'm like, oh my God. And honestly, that shot of Reen being like, excuse me, to Isagi, OT3, y'all. I'm here for it. Why have I been fighting these ships this whole time? Why? Why am I fighting ships when what I should have been doing is rooting for them both? That's what I should have been doing. And then the ball goes back to Bachira. And Bachira started to advance with only his voice guiding the way. I love it. And I love how he keeps telling everyone else, he's like, don't get around me. He's like, I kept relying on the monster and I wasn't trusting in my own voice. I was looking for you and losing touch with myself, and I shouldn't have been doing that. He's basically going through the journey that Rayo needs to go on Bachira's journey, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Right? But that's what needs to happen. And I love that he keeps shooing everybody away. Like, he keeps seeing the monsters of everyone else. And he's like, no. And he's like, disappear. And his eyes like his pupils become entirely black with the yellow inside. What the fudge? He looks so demonic there, right? He's like, please disappear. I don't need you anymore. And I love the concept of the monster has been so murky like mud that it's blocked his vision. And I was like, oh, that's so clever. That's so good. And he's like, this is my last stand. And he's like, damn it. He's like, it's such a bad habit to rely on this monster and this curse that's stifling me. But all this time, he's like, Isagi became my reason to exist, but he's not going to be there forever, right? Even if I stay by his side the rest of my life, he's not always going to be there for me to rely on. So I have to be able to be strong enough to be my own person so that he can trust in me and believe in me. And it's like, he's like, I can't move forward until I break this curse. And then he's like, I'm not passing the ball to anyone. I'm doing it myself. And I love that he does like the nutmegs to get past all of them. It's amazing. And he's like, no, I'm awakening to break this curse. I love it. And they all try to surround him. And then I like that Rin looks back at him, like looks back at Isagi, like, this guy won't leave me alone. Oh my gosh. And he's like, you pests are hovering around me like tiny insects. I love Bachira getting pissed. I love like the stuff coming out of his eyes like a Super Saiyan. He's like, stop distracting me, you pieces of shit. As he says that to Baro, Chigiri, and Nagi. Which again is why I think he would choose none of them. He would choose Isagi if anybody. But I don't know. I love Bachira getting pissed. I love it. And then that's when Isagi's like, oh, you're somebody Rin couldn't predict. You're the monster that I need to devour in order to beat Rin. Isagi just is spoiled for choice, isn't he? Just is spoiled for choice. And I love Bachira saying, I'd forgotten how to play with the freedom, but this was my starting point. This is how I've always been. I've had this freedom. And it's how he was at the start of the series before he started to like rely upon Isagi. I like these, like, this is how I always was and how I needed to be from the start. Like, this is who I am. Being one with the ball is what's there for me. I don't need another reason to play soccer, just that I love it and it's me. And again, that's the heart of Blue Lock. So I'm so happy for Bachira to find his soul and to find that he doesn't need anybody else. He can be himself and play soccer for him. Like, all the moves he does are amazing. And when he sticks out his tongue, he's like, there's nothing more fun than this in the whole universe. I'm glad that Bachira is back. I'm glad he's found himself. He's like, I don't care if I'm strange. I don't care if I have any friends or not. I'm going to keep fighting, and I'll lose myself in this passion that burns inside of me. As anti-ship as that sounds, I love a person that he has the blue aura and the yellow aura. I love that he stands up for himself in this moment, and he has both auras together. And you know, blue and yellow combines to make green, so maybe him and Isagi, right? Maybe. But I love that. I like the idea of Bachira becoming this ultimate striker, just believing in himself. And Isagi's like, that's what I love. Yes, please. More of this, please. And then he like moves past all of them. And he's like, I'm going to be the monster. And he's like, and he thanks the monster for staying by his side. He's like, I'll be sad if there's no one else at the end of all this. But from now on, I'm going to dance alone. And hopefully there'll be somebody at the end, which I think there will be. I think Isagi and Rin are going to be there. But I like that Bachira has gained his independence. And he's like, goodbye, Isagi, the guy who's been my soccer buddy up until now. That part makes me a little bit worried because I'm like, no, Bachira, you say goodbye to Isagi, but does that mean you guys aren't going to pick him if you win? And what happens if Asagi's team win and they pick you? How does that feels like a sign that Isagi and Bachira aren't advancing together, but what do we do about that, right? What? And then he doesn't say anything about Reen, so is he going to stick with Reen? I don't know. He's like, I have to get back my solitary soccer. And he's like, I have to go back to being able to play for me and not have to rely upon anyone else. Yep. And that's going to awaken me. But this is the moment, right, where he kicks the ball going at it. And he's like, because at this point, I think that Bachira believes that Isagi's picking Reen. And that he's like, well, then fine. He's like, because, it's basically, was Bachira going to wallow in despair? Was Bachira going to wallow in despair, not having Isagi choose him, and then just, sink to the bottom of the ocean? No, that's kind of the metaphor. He's like, I'm not going to sink to the bottom of the ocean. I don't need the bubbles that were representative were almost like representing Isagi, like the bubbles of air. And he's like, I don't need. It's almost like he becomes a merman like Reen, right? He's like, I don't need these bubbles of air that Isagi's been giving me. I've been relying too much on that. I've been treating him like oxygen that I needed to breathe, and I don't need that to breathe. So I feel like in this moment, Isagi was assuming, as he's demonically kicking this soccer ball and looks freaking like a wrong car from Bleach or a hollow, I feel like Bachira was relying on Isagi, and he was going to be afraid that if they didn't win, he was worried about them not winning and him not being chosen. And now he's like, no, screw that. We are going to win. I don't need to worry about Isagi. I can just worry about myself. But then Isagi jumps in front of him to block the damn ball. And he's like, I knew you would get here. And he instantly changes back to normal. Bachira's like, oh, what? And Isagi's like, I knew you could do it, Bachira. I knew that you would get here all by yourself. And I'm like, and the ship is back on. I was starting to feel really sad that he was leaving Isagi behind. And then Isagi's like, I wanted you to get here and be strong enough for me to eat you. And I was like, Isagi's not going to let this ship sink. No, sir. No, sir, he's not. He is not going to let this ship sink. And then the damn episode ends, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Son of a bitch. Yeah, no, of course not. So, I don't know. I'm ready for heartache next week because we only have 2 episodes left. I'm ready for heartache. I'm ready. As much as I want their team, Isagi and them to win, and then they'd have to argue over choosing Reen or Bachira, I don't think they're going to win. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's something in my heart is telling me like that they're not going to win. But I don't know how and what's going to happen because Isagi just jumped in to block the shot. So I don't know. I don't know how it's going down. But the big question is, if they do lose, is Bachira and Reen going to choose Isagi, or is Bachira going to be like, no, we don't need him anymore, and leave him behind and crush Isagi's soul? I don't know. I'm kind of dumbfounded, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to wait to watch episode 23, so y'all are going to have to wait on me. You're all going to have to forgive me if that's the case. I definitely want to read comments and see them, but I don't know how long I'm going to wait. I'm going to tell Discord, but I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait. So, the OSHA in America is like a safety standard. So the fact that it's called OSHA here is throwing me off so much. But the idea of Jubi being like, I guess OSHA means glam in Japanese maybe. But the fact of being glam or not glam, I like that he realizes, I love that he has the pinky finger up when he drinks out of the bottle. I like that he is acknowledging that Reen is naturally like a hot person. And he's super glam. And also, Ryu looks like he has this big mane surrounding him. But besides that, I love that he's like, but Reen is unintentionally and effortlessly beautiful, but he doesn't try to be. He just like plops down on the bed and he's not glam at all. Whereas Ryu's like, there's a way that you canon yourself into bed and be beautiful. And I'm like, oh my God. I love Ryu. I still think Ryu might be my favorite out of them. Reen's shot himself up there. I don't like Toki. It's not that I hate Toki, but he's my least favorite. I'm like, boy needs some therapy and probably some Axe body spray. But I do love Aryu a lot, and Reen is my little Cinderella that I want his heart to be melted. So, what do we do? But yeah, y'all, I am so excited to see what's gonna happen next. But y'all, here we go. In any case, I don't think I'm going to be able to wait. I'm so on adrenaline right now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait very long before watching episode 23, but we'll see. So, in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'm excited to hear your comments down below. But I will be back very soon with episode 23 of Blue Lock. Bye!